Hello everyone, my name is Beth. I'm Busy Bee Stitches here on FlossTube, and I am here with the beginning of a really exciting series. I cannot wait to bring this to all the people who have been asking me to do this for over a year at this point. So it's finally here, I'm doing it, and I'm so excited. This is my stash dive. Now, this video right here that you're watching is the intro to the series. So I'm going to talk to you about how I keep my stash in general, what tools I use and why, and sort of how my stash is organized at a high level. Then all of the subsequent videos are going to be me diving into my stash and using my tool to break down my stash into categories to show you. So I've got the first stash dive I'm filming right after this, so it should be going up on my channel right around the same time as this video, and then I plan to do these videos once a month. Hoping that I stick with that. I know that this year is gonna be a little bit crazy for me as I plan my wedding, but I think that I can manage one video a month, especially because the tool that I use to keep all my stash organized is really gonna do the hard part for me. So as long as I can get myself looking presentable on camera once a month, I think we'll be okay. All right, so diving into just what does my stash look like? Well, I have a really strong preference for digital charts. I really prefer my charts to be digital just because it's easy for me to organize them. It doesn't take up space, and when I'm stitching, I use all digital charts. So even if I've purchased a physical chart, I'll scan that in and then use that in my in the app that I use to mark off my charts. So I am almost never reading off of a paper chart while I'm stitching. But I do still have lots of paper charts. So I keep my digital charts in Google Drive, and I just keep them in folders that make sense to me. And then I keep my physical charts in binders like this. So these are all of my like small patterns, and then my big patterns are in this big binder. So all of my physical patterns are in page protectors, and they're in whatever binder the paper size fits. I do have multiple of those small binders. This binder is almost full, so my stash continues to grow. Shocking. I also have a fabric bin, like a fabric drawer of kits. I keep all my kits in there. And then I have books and magazines, both digitally, and then the physical ones I have on my shelf. So that's kind of a mishmash, and mishmash doesn't work for me. If you don't know me yet, I am not shy about the fact that I have ADHD, and for me, if I were to not have a system for keeping track of my charts, having charts in a binder and in my Google Drive and in my Kindle app and in a book on my shelf and in a kit in a drawer, like I would be a disaster. But while I'm a disaster in many other areas of my life, in this area I am not most of the time a disaster. So I'm going to show you how I manage that. So, I mean, there are lots of ways to organize your stash, and really, you know, you want to use the way that works best for you. I'm just going to talk to you about the way that works best for me. Some ways that I considered and decided not to do. You could just keep a list of your projects in Excel or in a Word document, you know, simple. On a piece of paper, you could write down just all of the patterns that you have on a piece of paper. Easy. That doesn't work for me. You could use an app like Airtable. Airtable is a really easy to use database interface. So it's similar to Excel, but it has a little bit more robust features, allows you to add pictures, that kind of thing. But again, that didn't really work for me, and I'll get to why. Then I know a popular one among stitchers is the Xstitch app that will let you create like a journal for your projects, and so you can put in a picture and the designer and all that kind of stuff. That one still really didn't have the features that I was looking for. You could just take pictures of all of your projects and keep them in an album on your phone. So there are lots of options that you could use that are not the tool that I use, but let me tell you why none of those really work for me. The number one thing that I need is to be able to visualize my stash. So just having a list of just the titles of my my charts really isn't helpful for me. And it's not that I can't remember what it looks like, it's that I really get a lot of value out of like scrolling through and seeing my patterns, and just, you know, seeing one and having that same reaction that I had when I wanted to buy it of, oh, I really like that, I really want to stitch that. If I don't have the image of what it looks like in front of me, I'm not getting that visceral reaction of wanting to stitch it. And also, you know, having the images of my charts always in front of me reinforces in my brain what I actually have. Otherwise, it's really easy to, you know, file it away and never think about it again until someone else on FlossTube starts talking about it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I had that. So again, my stash is super mixed. So, I mean, sometimes it just works for people who only have paper charts to just have the binder of paper charts and just to be able to flip through and look at everything they have that way. But because my stash is so divided into different types, that doesn't really work for me, because I want my digital charts and my physical charts and my kits and all those things to be able to be seen at the same time. And I was not about to like print out pictures of everything I have. That's just not reasonable. Also, I wanted to be able to look at my stash from anywhere. I wanted to be able to be in a store or, you know, out somewhere, and, you know, if I'm at Michael's buying floss, to be able to look at my stash, look at what I have. If I'm out at an LNS, which I don't get to do often because I don't have one in my hometown, but it's okay. Occasionally I get to go to an LNS, and when I'm there, I want to be able to look at what I have to make sure I'm not buying something that I already have. I have never, ever, ever bought a duplicate chart. And I hear other stitchers talking about, oh, I couldn't remember if I had this and I bought it anyway, and it turns out I did already have it. That's never happened to me because I store my charts this way. So, having the images of my charts being the most important thing that really narrows down what options I have for tools to use. So things like Excel, out. And then because I wanted to be able to like scroll through and look at all my projects, something where the picture is really small, also really not that helpful. So things like Airtable, where the picture is just like really small, you can click on it to make it bigger, but there's no like scroll through and just look at your projects. So those kinds of things were out. I did for a while keep a Google Drive of just pictures of projects. So every time I bought a new project, I would grab a picture of it and I would save it in a folder in my Google Drive, just called Stash Pics. And eventually, as my collection grew, I needed to be able to, you know, break up my projects, categorize them so that they would be easier to find. And so I had, you know, I was trying to decide whether it was useful to group things by designer or by category, and I changed my mind too many times because there were different, like there was a different usefulness to each of the strategies that I picked. And then I would get into situations where, you know, if I was categorizing by theme and, okay, well, I've got a folder full of projects that have animals on them, and I have a folder full of projects that are like Christmas themed, but some of my Christmas themed projects have animals on them. I know that's a really simple example, but that happened to me all the time, and I would have to decide which folder it was going to go into, and then inevitably I would look for it in the other one, and it just wasn't working for me. So what I decided I really needed was a way to tag my stash pictures with different characteristics so that I could search for the same pattern in a bunch of different ways. There were a couple of things that I found that could do that, particularly like photo apps that would allow you to tag your photos, but that was really missing another element that was important to me, which was being able to add notes about each chart. So I wanted to be able to write on it who the designer was, what are the dimensions of it, things like that were important to me. If I looked at a chart and said, oh, I really want to do that, but I don't want to do the border, I want to be able to put that note in there so that 6 months from now when I'm deciding what I want to work on and I look at that and I go, why did I want to work on that? Oh, it's because that border that's really scaring me right now, I decided I didn't want to do it. So I need those little reminders. So now the list of requirements has grown. I need something that has large images, and there are a lot of apps that have like photo limits, and I've got a big stash. I don't really want to have a photo limit. I need to be able to tag my charts. I need to be able to add notes to it, and I need it to be available on multiple devices and to be able to be available to me, you know, when I'm out in the world. And the bonus would be that I didn't really want to pay a ton of money for it because at the time I was playing around with what was going to be useful for me. So I didn't want to spend a lot of money on a tool that I decided really wasn't working for me. So it needed to at least have a free trial if it was going to be paid. So after so much looking around, I finally found my home, at least for now, for my stash, which is Google Keep. Now, Google Keep is, if you have a Google phone, an Android phone, you probably just know it as, I think it's just the Notes app on a Google phone. I don't have an Android phone, so I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that Google Keep is just like, you know, it's one of the built-in apps in that operating system. But it's available to people who don't use Android also. So I use it in the browser on my computer, and I have an app on all of my Apple devices. So it's really available to me absolutely anywhere I am, which is really fantastic, really great, and basically the same availability to me as my Google Drive, which was also important to me. So that means that I can look through all of my stash in Google Keep, at least pictures of it. I don't have all the charts, you know, the content of the charts stored in Google Keep, but I have all the pictures and all the notes and everything like that in Google Keep. And then all of my digital charts and any physical charts that I've scanned, I have stored in Google Drive. So that's awesome. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to give you a little bit of a tutorial about how I use Google Keep specifically. I'm going to show you what that looks like, and then I will, yeah, then I'll come back and wrap it up. All right, so I've shifted my camera angle a little bit, and now I'm gonna actually show you what Google Keep looks like and how I use it. Hopefully you're seeing both my face and Google Keep at the same time, my computer screen at the same time. Hopefully I got that edited together correctly. If not, sorry. All right, so what you're seeing here is a big mishmash of charts in my stash. This right now is the tag I use for things that I still have to input some information on. When I first get a chart, I try to immediately get a picture of it up in Google Keep so that I don't forget about it. But sometimes it takes me a little bit to like actually go through and put all the information in about that chart. So this is just how I don't forget to do that. So we're gonna add the information in for a chart that I just got. This is a chart that came in the Black Needle Society Halloween Advent box this year. I didn't get that box, but I did buy this chart in the vault. So that just came in the mail the other day. So I have the chart here. This is a physical chart, so this will go in my binder full of physical chart stash. And now I took the picture off of the website, I cropped it a little bit, and I added it to a note here. So now we're going to add some information about this chart. So for the title of each note, I always just put the name of the chart. So this one is named Baba Yaga. So that's what I do. Obviously this is very freeform and you can use this however you want, but I just keep this pattern for myself so that every note has the same information. So now I'm going to add the designer. Whoops. And the designer of this chart is Autumn Lane. Whoops. Stitchery. And the next thing I do is add the size. So sometimes on a chart it's really easy to tell what the size is, and sometimes you have to like go into the grid and actually count. But this one makes it super easy. Right here it tells me that this chart is 140 stitches by 196 stitches. So, and I don't really care what the like long and short way is when I put that in there. I just want to have it all in there. So then what I do is I add those two numbers together and divide them by 2 to get the square dimensions of the chart. I stole that from, oh my gosh, what is it called? The Facebook group where you get like points for completing things in your stash. Forget what it's called. But they gave you the amount of points based on the square dimensions of your chart. So that's where I took this from. So this pattern is 168 stitches square. Now I have a grid for myself to decide what size category this chart is. So for me, a mini chart is 0 to 50 stitches, and then a small chart is 51 to 100 stitches. A medium chart is 101 to 150 stitches. A large chart is 151 stitches to 200 stitches, and then a huge chart is 201 to 250 stitches, and then a BAP is more than 250. So this chart is 168 stitches square. I did the math already before. So that would make this a large chart. So I tag all of my charts with one of these tags that show the size. So I'm gonna select the large one. And then If my chart is stash, I always give it a tag for that. I also have one for whips and one for finished charts, so I'll give it the stash. And this little A underscore, it just means that because the list of labels on the left side of my screen is alphabetized, I just put the A in there so that it would be near the top, so it's easy to click on. All right, so now it's got the stash tag. And I don't tag with the designer because I can search for that easily. So now I'm gonna add any other tags that I think are relevant. I do my best to be consistent with these. Sometimes I find ones that I missed a tag, and I'll just go back and fix it later. So this one is a Halloween chart 'cause it's spooky. So I'm gonna put the Halloween tag on it. I also have a tag for things that I got through the Black Needle Society, so I'm gonna add that tag. I tag things that I have on paper so that I know that if I need to find it, I can find it in one of my binders. And I also am gonna give this the new tag. I use the same sort of method as I do with the stash to make this bump to the top of my list of labels, but I'm gonna give it the new tag because I just got this. And so sometimes, you know, in my floss tube, if I'm gonna be showing things that I have gotten since the last time I showed things, I can just quickly go to this new label and see everything that I've gotten since the last time. All right, so now that I've added in everything that I think is important, I don't have any other notes that I need to add about this one. Maybe I would add, this is all DMC, maybe, because I have a full set of DMC, so that means it's automatically floss kitted. I just need to pick fabric. So yeah, I think that's all I need to do for this one. Now I can remove this review tag because I finished adding all the things I needed to add. This dive tag is what I'm using to help organize my stash dive videos. So this means that I'll be showing it during the Halloween portion of my stash dive. So yeah, that's it. Now I can just close it, and it removed it from this label because it doesn't need review anymore. And if I go into my stash, then I can see it here. So that's how easy it is to add something to my stash. So let me show you what, these are my whips. And so since I won't be showing these to you in my stash dive, I figure I'll show them to you now. So this is what it looks like to be able to scroll through my project. So this is everything I currently have in progress, and I can very nicely just see it all visually. I can be easily reminded of everything that I'm working on, and it's all tagged nicely, has all the designer information, so when I'm filming my floss tube, I can easily, you know, see who designed the chart that I'm talking about, all of that kind of stuff. So I find this ridiculously helpful. I can also toggle the view, so if this list view is more useful, I can do that. But I really like this one. So let's now talk about some labels that I have. Obviously you can see there's a ton of labels here that I use. Let me show you just some noteworthy ones. Let's look at, for example, I got a SAL label. So these are things that used to be SALs. None of these are ongoing. But these are all things that came out in parts. I'm probably actually missing a few that I own that came out in parts like this. Let's look at snail. I have a snail tag. For any of you who are new to my channel, you'll know, you may not know that snails are very special to me. related to the Black Needle Society and retreats that we've been to. Snails have kind of become a thing that we all love. So I have developed a stash of things with snails in them. And so I will tag them with snail so that they show up in this snail tag. Let's see. Maybe I'll show you my, what else should I show you? Here we go. I'll show you my Quaker tag. So anything that I have that is a Quaker, I tag with Quaker so I can easily find it that way. I have an ornament tag, so anything that it could be made into an ornament. I may not decide to FFO it that way, but anything that's small that looks like it would make a really good ornament or was intended to be an ornament, I'll tag that because I absolutely love ornaments. I like making them. I like giving them as gifts. So I find that tag to be super useful. I also have one that I want to show you for, where is it? I would usually just search for it, but here we go. I have a tag for things that have come out of a magazine or a book, because those things are stored sort of all together, but there's usually only a few things in there that I actually want to do. Excuse me. It can be really tricky to keep track of the things that are in a book that I'm actually interested in doing. So what I'll do is take pictures of the specific items, excuse me, I have the hiccups, the specific items inside a book or a magazine. I do this with my digital magazines. I do this with, you know, physical books and magazines. And then I will add them to my stash. That way I don't lose track of them. So as you can see, I've got a ton of things that I've accumulated out of books and magazines that I would be interested in stitching. Will I ever stitch all of these? Unlikely. Are there things in those books and magazines that I didn't take a picture of that maybe one day I'll end up stitching? Yeah, definitely. I still have access to those books and magazines, and I can always go back and flip through them and see if anything new interests me, especially as my tastes change. I find that stash dives during Black Needle Society retreats, they'll play a stash dive game where you go diving through your stash to look for specific things. And so whenever I have extra time, I'll look for anything I haven't found in magazines and books that I have. And so I find that helps to refresh my memory. If there's anything in there that I hadn't noticed before but am interested in now, I'll grab it and add it here. And like this picture your pet one, for example, I just put a picture of the cover because there's so much in here and I really have no idea what I'll stitch out of there, because I have a feeling a lot of what I'll stitch out of there will be gifts to match pets of my friends. So it was kind of tricky to pick out from there what I wanted to stitch, so I just put the cover on there so I don't forget that I have it. So yeah, I mean, obviously I've got lots more tags here, but I just wanted to show you sort of what I use tagging for. I have, you know, the standard tags for holidays and seasons and that kind of thing too, for different fandoms that I like. I have a tag for like specialty stitches and embellishments. Really just anything that I think would be useful to go back and see grouped together. So now I want to show you the search feature. So I can search for a label. So if I want to search for Halloween, I can do that. This is actually doing, this is using the tag, but it's also doing a general search. So if there's something that's not tagged with Halloween, but maybe the name said Halloween, it'll still come up in this search. So you can see that this Halloween acorns, it's going based off of the name of it, because you can see it highlighted there in yellow. I can also, though, if I clear out that search, I can select a label in here and then it will only pull back things that have that label. Now, this one also is labeled with Halloween, so it still came back. But now I can search within that label. So maybe I want to search for, none of these have like the same designer, do they? No, I was looking for something that might be similar across different charts, but I'm not seeing that. So, oh, maybe I'll search for Halloween within that. No, that went by the tag. Let's do, I mean, there we go. Pumpkin. Search for pumpkin, and I don't have a tag for pumpkins. So this is pulling up anything that I had tagged as Halloween. Do I have this one tagged as Yep. So anything I had tagged as Halloween that had pumpkin somewhere in the text, now it's pulling that back. I can also search for designer. So like if I want to search for Tiny Modernist, now these are all of my Tiny Modernist patterns that I have. This is why I don't create tags for designers, because I can just search for it this way as long as I word it the same for all of my Tiny Modernist patterns. Sometimes that can get a little tricky with like Owl Forest. Sometimes I don't add the embroidery to the end, or like Autumn Lane Stitchery. Sometimes I'll just get lazy and type Autumn Lane. It'll still, if I search for Autumn Lane, it'll still come up, so I'm not too worried about it. But I try to be as consistent as possible. And then because there's a limit of how many labels that I can have, obviously I'm still able to have a lot, but if I had a tag for every designer, there would be too many. So yeah, you can see that I have favorite designers because clearly I have a lot of Tiny Modernists. You can see that I'll even include pictures of freebies that I have downloaded. So this Home Stitch Home, that's a freebie. And when I downloaded that, I added a picture into my stash so that I would remember that I have it and can work on it when I want to. Again, I can also search for a chart name. So like if I'm looking for cabin, a chart with a cabin in the name, I found that I have 2. So I'm pretty sure that's everything that's interesting to show you about this. We can just, you know, take a little bit of a scroll through my stash. There's no way to sort. That's a little bit of a bummer, but I don't really find that I'm needing it all that often, because I really, when I have a desire to sort, really what I want to do is look by one of these labels, and I can easily do that. So the default is just to sort by how recent I added the note. So we can take a very quick scroll. It's loading things as I'm scrolling. A very quick scroll through my stash, but you'll be seeing these things in detail as I go through my dye videos. So yeah, I love this tool. I think it's great. I think it serves my needs pretty much the best of any tool that I've ever found. And I just think that it totally opens up my my brain to focus on other things and not having to remember all the wonderful, beautiful patterns that I own. As much as I'm really loving this app for keeping all my stash organized, I do find that there are a few downsides to this tool. So I want to be transparent and tell you about them. The first thing that really bothers me, and this is probably something that not everybody would care about, but one of the things that I really wish that it did was had a more sophisticated search. And the reason that it extra bums me out is because this is a Google product, and there are other Google products that have way better search than this one does, and I just don't know why. I'm sure there's a good reason, but I don't know why they're just like treating this app as a second-class citizen with its search. So I would really love to be able to search my stash for things that don't have the finished label on them, or to be able to look for something that has the label, you know, Tiny Modernist or the Blue Flower. It doesn't really, it's just not that good. And it's something I can live with because it does all the other things that I want it to do. But especially because I work as a software developer in my in my daily life, I am used to tools that have a really robust capability like that, and this one just doesn't, and it's kind of a bummer. The other downside to this tool is that there is a limit for how many labels or tags you can have. I don't remember what it is. I have reached it, and then I deleted some old ones that I wasn't really using, and now I'm fine again. But there is a limit of how many tags you can have. And then because this is Google, I mean, really this could happen for any app, but Google is kind of notorious for doing this, is that Google could just decide tomorrow that they're done with Google Keep. They don't want to support it anymore, and they could say, you know, by this time next year, that app is going to go away. In the meantime, figure out what to do with it, with all your stuff that's in there, which would be really sad. I don't think that they're going to do that, but they could, especially because, you know, they're not using the same kind of search that they have in other tools. It could be an indicator that this isn't an app that they super believe in. I don't know. If I was really worried about it, I wouldn't use it. So take that with a grain of salt. But what I will say is that there is a way to export all of your data out of the app. So if for some reason they were gonna discontinue the app, or if you just didn't want to use it anymore, there is a way to export all of your data out of there. So there are also a lot of great features of Google Keep that I didn't show you, probably because I'm not really using them. They weren't as useful to me, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't be useful to you. So really, you know, if you decide to try this app out, play around with it and figure out how it can fit your needs the best, because your needs are not going to be the same as mine, and that's okay. If you have any questions about just generally how I keep my stash, or specifically about Google Keep or any of the other tools that I tried and rejected, any questions at all, feel free to put them in the comments. I will be responding to them as I see them. And also, if you ask me a really fantastic question that I feel like deserves a whole video, then I might do that. So, you know, if you'd like a tutorial for something that I didn't show you, definitely put it in the comments below. So yeah, this is kicking off my stash dive now. So you should be seeing a video, if not already, very shortly, with my first set of stash that I'm going to show you. So October, I am showing you my autumn stash and, excuse me, and my Halloween stash. And then in November, I will be showing Thanksgiving and Hanukkah, because Hanukkah starts on the Monday after Thanksgiving. And then we'll go forward after that. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for supporting me and for all the people who encouraged me to share how I keep my stash. Thank you so much, and I hope this helped.